call to order the parking committee meeting. I'm joined by Bernie Flynn and Lisa Dorsey. I am Sheila Vaccaro. First thing on the agenda is comments, suggestions, and petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak in front of you. I learned about this meeting this afternoon, so pardon me if I'm a little haphazard. My name is Joe Furia, General Manager and Chief Numismatist at Coins of Chester County at 20 North High Street here in the borough. The reason why I'm here tonight is I want to discuss parking in front of my store, which I had a very heated discussion with Miss Rainey last week about somehow parking in front of my store for security reasons and for basically, pardon me, weight reasons, because I carry a lot of weight myself, of course, but also merchandise-wise, there could be 300 or 400 pounds of coins that basically I must transfer from my vehicle to the store for security reasons. And I started parking on the pavement, which Miss Rainey said I wasn't allowed to do, and that's okay. But I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make it easy for me to park in front of my store to transfer goods and or to be safe, because sometimes I have some high value. And again, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. I don't want special treatment, but basically what the schedule I have is on a Thursday morning at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, I will go and park in front of my store. Literally just take my briefcases, 2 or 3 briefcases and or boxes, bring them into my store, secure them in my safe or whatever, and then literally rush out of the store and go park in the municipal lot. Usually takes between, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes to get this whole process done. So it's not like I'm sitting there like other vehicles that we discussed last week. Over an hour, 45 minutes, or whatever, clogging up the streets of Westchester. So I guess without getting adversarial, if you will, I want to know what my next move is. I'm a small businessman just trying to make a living and trying to be safe. So I'm just trying to figure out what my next move is so that I can some kind of compromise or some kind of, I don't know what else to say. So if there's something I need to do, if there's something, a permit I need to apply for or something like that, I will be glad to do that. But I really do need to get in front of that store on a Thursday and or Saturday, again, to be redundant for either a security reason or for poundage of things moving from here to about where that picture is. So off the record or on the record, what is my next move?
So I'm sorry, Mr. Perry, where is your store or your business?
High Street in Westchester. It's a half a block or 3/4 of a block away from the old courthouse, I believe. So I don't know what.
Can I ask what Ms. Rainier's response was, what her suggestions were?
Basically, the suggestions were I couldn't double park and I couldn't park up on this. There was, off the record, there were no other suggestions. It was either get ticketed or don't park there. So there weren't really any other options that I had. And again, to be redundant, for me to take 500 pounds from the municipal lot, which is near the YMCA, I guess that's Chestnut Street, to bring them around the corner, up the street and in, it's impossible, and the security risk is huge.
So there's,
Again, I'm not trying to get preferential treatment, or I'm just trying to run my business as best as I can.
there is no parking on High Street, is that correct? Where you're located?
There is no parking.
There is no parking. And how long have you been in this business
Well, I've been in
at
the
that
bu-
location?
I've been in the business 51 years. The store's been there since the 70s, when my mentor and my friend, Tom Werner, was there at 20 North High Street since the 70s. I've been there 11 years myself. So, and it was a nice relationship. It was kind of like whenever the parking authority saw my car, they kind of like went by the car, or they just told me, you got to move that, in which case I was compliant. That was easy. I would do that. But it just seems like it's a frustrating situation for me right now, because again, I'm just trying to run my business.
So Ms. Vaccaro, this item was not on the agenda. So I suggest,
No, I'm sorry. This is not on the agenda. No.
fair enough. I mean, that's
And
why we
again, I
have
wasn't sure
open
if- pardon me,
comment.
I wasn't sure if
No,
this was an
this
open
is the
forum.
right
So
spot for you to-
pardon me for being, just showing up.
This is the appropriate spot. You have every right to bring up any issue at this point. We are not going to necessarily solve it right now for you.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate it. We've heard it. Let us continue down the agenda and then we will talk with Ms. Rainier and she will be in contact with you further because these kinds of issues are extremely important to us. The businesses in the borough matter a ton. And
I
we
appreciate
need
that.
to take this into
And
account.
again, I didn't expect anything to be done this evening, but again, I wanted to get it out there just so we could get something done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move on to, is there anything else? Yes.
Just curious what the borough's doing with the quantity of people that are living in the borough and not enough parking. I'm Chris, by the way.
Chris, where do you live?
I live on New Street.
What block? This is
New-
required
New-
information.
No, sorry, New in Washington.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, for coming. And
It's like 4 cars per house and not enough parking.
we know. And we are desperately working through things at a government pace.
I'm desperately trying to pay all my tickets.
Thank
So
you. Thank you very much for doing that. Right next to you.
I'm sure she can attest to that. My other question is, what is the township going to do about the tenants harassing those who don't have parking permits when there's no parking available? I have to park in times in a permit spot, and then I'm getting harassed at night. Notes are left on my car. They're knocking on my windows at 11 o'clock at night. What is being done about that?
If you're being harassed,
I'm not the
please-
only one.
Please contact the police.
I have.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Continue. And
People are entitled, they think, because they pay for that permit spot.
I know there are lots of entitled people
All
in
the
this
people
borough.
on all the people on New Street, yeah, they're all entitled.
So I used to live on New Street, which New in Washington.
Right, all the people on Washington Street.
I'm not saying, what I'm saying is try to follow the rules. The permit parking is set up specifically to accommodate the people who do live here.
The parking system is designed not for people who work at night. For people,
Agreed.
for people who work at night, they get the raw end of the deal. And that's not fair to the people who are supporting the area at night. There's nowhere to go.
Keep bringing things like this to us. We can't solve
I'm
it
moving
tonight.
out of the township because of it.
Okay.
No, at the end of this month, because it's ridiculous. I just wanted to bring it up because it's not fair to the people who are working at night. Like I sometimes get out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Where am I supposed to park?
I appreciate it. I appreciate that you came here. I appreciate that you shared that. That is an important piece of our community. And I know a lot of people who work at night. And then this is an ongoing issue and you bringing it to our attention is very important. So if you're here, continue doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to discussion items. A is the director's report.
Okay, we have, is this on? Is it on? Okay. We have begun interviews for part-time officers. We're doing our best. I'm trying to get one more interview before we make an offer. And then that person will be hopefully working Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings from 8 to midnight. So that'll help with, I know some of the concerns about the residential permitting and meters down in town. So that'll help support the nighttime staff, which I know we hear a lot about in complaints. There was a memo attached in the agenda attachments just regarding a inflationary price increase for IPS, which is our meter software, which, you know, we did our due diligence to do our inventory to get about 100 extra meters knocked off our inventory, and then they raised the price to $660 a month. So this is how much we pay just for the monitoring of our meters every month. But I will say, when I started here, we have a faulty meter report that we get every month on which meters are not reporting back to IPS or which are jammed, and they jam very quickly. If we don't do a collection over the weekend, they'll jam. I'm sure you've noticed in town. The faulty meter report used to be 4 pages long consistently, and we are down to like 5 lines. So that's thanks to Ellie, Corday, Jill, Monica, and Walt. They have really been consistently trying to fix the meters in town. So hopefully everything's up and running, but we did get a cost increase. What else? Sorry.
I have a question,
Yes.
Ms. Rainier. Is that competitive, that price increase? I mean, is this something that we would want to look at, maybe putting out the RFP the next time?
I don't know if that's a good question. Because we're going to look at going to kiosks or multi-space meters in town, that will alleviate some of these issues anyway, but IPS is one of the main competitors. So I think this is pretty consistent, but I will look into that because I don't actually know how many meter software companies there are. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
I did do one demo of a license plate recognition system. We are going to start getting some quotes on that. And I'd like the officers to participate in that since they're the ones that are going to be utilizing it. But the software is pretty amazing. I mean, you can tell if an officer drives by a license plate that's not in compliance or that's overstated a meter and that they don't write a ticket. So it's interesting because you can see the efficiency of enforcement and you can see hotspots in the area. So it would be a nice addition to the enforcement system that we already have in place. But again, it would be really nice for night shifts since there's only a couple of officers. And as I mentioned, we're looking into where to place the multi-space pay stations on Gay Street. I know Sean and I talked about walking town and deciding where they should go. And that will be nice, especially when we start closing Gay Street and you won't have a meter pole in your back as you're eating dinner. And then I know we had originally had, there were some special event fee waiver requests. I just wanted to let parking committee know that, I'm sure you guys already know that all of those will now be on the public safety committee agenda since that's where special events are now going. So just wanted to give a heads up. Revenue for the month of March. Ticket revenue was $121,210,000. Posting revenue, you can tell it was warmer because we were up to $7,000, $7,432 in posting revenue. Lease revenue was $480. I did reach out to the Methodist Church. There was a little miscommunication, so I invoiced them and we have an understanding, so they'll catch up on their payments, but that was just a paperwork misunderstanding. Meter revenue for the month was $168,889.82. Permit revenue was $1,031. Booting was $2,200, and there were no food trucks. So the total revenue was $301,242.89. And that's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we can move on to the garage management report.
I think anyone is here from the garage this evening. I did notify them.
Can I ask a question? They weren't
Yes.
here last month either.
Yeah,
What's the story?
I know that Joe is dealing with some personal issues, so I did notify them of the meeting. I want to circle back on where they are and why they're not here. And I will set up a meeting before the next meeting to talk to them about it because I know Sean and I had some questions about the snow removal costs. And I know they're looking into that because they were really high. So I will make sure they're here for next month. I'm not sure why they're not.
Thank you.
Okay, we had, all right, the notification process for ordinance 2022-11 Adams Street.
Has there been any update with the Wyeth property?
Final plans will be coming to council in May. It's at planning commission in April.
Okay. So we're,
Okay, so we're gonna leave that on hold
okay.
and move on to discussion regarding parking at the parks after hours.
Yes, so this was requested by some residents, and I'm not sure if anyone is here to speak on that. Do you
I
have?
don't, is there anyone here to discuss parking after hours? Okay,
Okay, we'll table that.
we
No.
can table that then. Let's move on to consideration of including 100 South High Street in F permit parking.
This was requested by Brian McFadden, who's right here, so I'll let him plead his case.
Good evening. Thank you for considering my request. My name is Brian McFadden. I own a building at the corner of High and Minor Street. I've got the borough map showing the different parking zones, which I'd like to hand out. My building is on the southwest corner of the intersection of High and Minor, North High and, well, I guess it'd be, well, High and Minor. As you can see from the area that I circled, the F district appears to go all the way up to High Street. My address technically is 100 South High Street, which was assigned by the post office 150 years ago when the building was built. I have that, and my frontage on High Street represents about 25% of the total building frontage. The other 75 is on Minor Street. And when I circled this, I looked and it looks like that building is already included in the F zone. So I wanted to get some clarification on that. If you look across the street directly north, you'll see that they stopped the F parking zone shy of High Street because there's a commercial building on the corner. Building that I have has a commercial space, a cupcake shop on the first floor, and then 3 apartments above. I'm only here looking for the residential piece, not trying to include the commercial space in that. I have 2 one-bedroom apartments and a 4-bedroom apartment. So doing the math, it's 6 to 8 permits that I'd like to be included in. That's it. That's what's in front of you.
I hear your request. I completely understand why you're here, but I am strongly inclined not to move forward with this. We have been not including apartment developments in, and I know they have parking in the building and yours does not because it's an old building. But we have been excluding developments from the permit parking situation very intentionally. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but
What's your rationale for using your own words, excluding a residential development? I don't get it. Is it because they're tenants?
no,
Not enough parking go around, but now, I mean, I could say, and you're going to tell me, oh, we misdrew the map. When I looked at this, you know, I respect,
Is showing where F permits can park. So I mean, it's not only showing the inclusion of it, this is where the F permits can park. These are the meters and parking spaces available for F permit. So while your building does have, you know, street side here, the frontage is on High Street and none of these buildings are included in that parking permit area. And I think that would be the concern for the parking department is once you include that building, every
been-
single building is on High Street is going to say, well, can we also?
I couldn't disagree more. Looking at your map, it's clear that the F permit parking ends at High Street on the south side of Minor Street and it ends one tax parcel short of High Street on the north side. So I believe I'm already included.
That is only the parking where, so if I lived in that F permit, that's where I'm allowed to park. That's not the buildings that are allowed to park there.
Okay, I was under that impression.
Yeah.
Well, I have three
It's a little
entrances.
confusing, but that is what that map means.
Anybody else weighing in? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to action items. A is a motion to approve the draft lease for Lot 7, Chestnut Street and Darlington Street.
So we have a draft, it says draft lease, it's titled a memorandum of understanding. This is for the borough, between the Borough of Westchester and Darlington Commons LP, which is Mr. McFadden's property as well. This goes back to the land development decision for Darlington Commons, which was, let's see, Darlington Commons Land Development Plan and Reverse Subdivision Plan, which was dated August 18, 2003, last revised September 8th, 2004. So this was part of the land development agreement for the Darlington Commons building, which is on the corner of Gay Street and Darlington Street. Everyone's familiar with that. So this is to tidy up. This is another outstanding lease. This is regarding Lot 7, which Sean and I just counted. It either has 56 or 57 total parking spaces. Right now, Mr. McFadden currently holds a lease for 45 spaces in the lot. The rest of the spaces are metered spaces that also F permit people have access to park. The hope would be for the parking department that we would do similarly to what we did at Lot 5, lease the spaces, clean up the signage. I have a kiosk available at Chestnut Street that we could then move to Lot 7 and use the extra available time for kiosk parking at the spaces. So I don't know, did you want to speak? Okay.
Briefly.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, Sigmund Fleck on behalf of the McFadden Group. We worked pretty hard with your solicitor and your parking director and hammered out, I think, what is a very nice compromise agreement. Covers just almost everything we could possibly hope for, with one small exception. We'd like to know if we could increase the number of spaces to 50. Don't you see? We're going to play cards. We're going to play cards. You got to wait for the question to get completed before you just tell me where I'm going. But that would be the request.
I hear your request and I completely appreciate it, but I don't know if you kept track of what happened with Lot 5. I vehemently want to increase as much public parking space as I can possibly increase in the borough. I am not excited about giving you 5 more spaces.
So it wouldn't be giving. Although we could certainly, if that would, she's got an orange pen.
No giving, leasing to you. Yes,
Paying good
yes.
hard-earned money for, with the caveat that there are time constraints here. So these spaces are there to service the tenant population, but just during the hours that we need business people coming into the borough. And then they're released to the parking czar after that. Madam Parking Czar, for her uses after those hours. So I think it's a fair compromise. They're available for, the bulk of the people that want to come in for dinner or shopping in after hours. Those spaces will be there for them.
What about your tenants over the 3 tenants who want parking there? Or the 8 tenants who wanted permit parking? where are they, we're only having them park there.
This,
I know it's a completely separate issue. Ignore me. Ignore that comment.
that.
Strike that.
When you say strike that, they just type strike that. It
Yes,
doesn't-
and they don't
it
actually
does not
strike
help.
anything. I'm just saying, I want more spaces available to more people more of the time, as much as I can.
We could work on building a giant garage over there.
Can you
Yeah, sure.
hear the whole thing?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the only one who wants that. I don't know anybody else.
You're
Yeah,
not, we're not going to have a choice. I mean, the growth
agree.
here is there's, you can't go down we can talk to Eli about trying to put a shovel in the ground in this borough.
You can't do that. Go up.
You-
Go up. Make it so beautiful. Can you do that? Can you do that for me, please? Really beautiful, tiered.
You can't
Parking
believe
spaces.
what is possible. You just got to have a little image, you got to have a dream.
I
Vision.
have some vision.
But until we can get to that point, that would be, I think, a fair accommodation where, Mr. McIdens can have the flexibility to have those 5 more spots. And then they're turned over to the people that need it.
The 45 spaces that you currently have, are they all being turned over
In the evening?
in the evening?
Yeah.
They are?
That's the way that's what we landed.
Is that how it ended?
Like right now, how it's
In the lease?
So right now, it says owner shall notify the borough of the number of parking spaces that it wants to lease exclusively 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that owners shall be permitted exclusive use of the parking spaces Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. So the conversation was that if they wanted 24/7, they would have to notify us and they would pay for the signs and we would sign it appropriately. So every year they would let us know, out of the 45 spaces, we're going to use 20 for 24/7 and pay that market rate for that. The other 25 would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., similar to the church.
But the way it is now.
The current
is
situation
a little
now
different.
is different than what this memorandum of understanding is.
So
Like-
what's your plan
Well,
this year?
where we are is I've got a lease now and Ramsey had reached out and said, hey, we want to clarify this. We can't find our signed copy. I went back to August of 2004 minutes of council, came up with their discussion that clearly shows, and that was submitted months ago, what the conversation was originally when this land development was approved. And what it was 45 spaces at market rate, 24/7. Not just 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 24/7. When Ernie McNeely was the borough manager, it was more of a handshake that said, look, there's people in that block that don't have access to parking. Can they park there at night? I said, we don't need it at night. Technically, we have it round the clock. So I just said, no problem. You guys deal with it. Because the borough was doing the enforcement for us anyway. We were issuing our people hang tags and parking people would come in and say, if the tag's not there, we're ticketing you. It's a great thing because that got them hanging the tags. But that's the current situation right now until we have an agreed to memorandum of understanding. And that's what Mr. Fleck, Ramsey, and Kristen Camp had been working through. I was in the background. A little bit more to the original agreement had me where the water tower used to be behind lot 3, I believe it is. It's now a community garden. Conversation was I would build conceivably I think it's an 18 space surface parking lot there if the borough acquired that piece, which they subsequently did. And I guess Aqua took the tower down. And then I would pay for it and I get 75% of the cost back in credits against my parking payments as we went forward for lot 7. That's not included here. That's all cleaned up, if you would. I don't know how doable that was in the first place, but that's what the council worked out. So that's what we have right now. That's what we're operating under. I could have just sat there and said, I got it ad infinitum. it's not recorded, but it's documentable, and I'll get it recorded. But I haven't. We're trying to work something through there.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that.
I think that, Mr. Fleck's comment about the flexibility in the spaces, again, we only need them 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and probably not even that whole time frame, but that'll give us enough to service the development. That's what these long-term spaces are for, is to service the commercial development in town during the hours that they're typically needed. Outside of those hours, it's up to more of a residential use or a restaurant kind of, parking, people coming in at night. And that's what this agreement, this memorandum of understanding, as I understand it, accomplishes.
So, Mr. McFadden, I want to make sure I understand. You've got 45 spaces today. You'd like to have 50. Regardless of the number that we land on, you're saying you only need those spaces from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. After that time, you would turn them over to the residents. I asked that because we just had a gentleman in here that lives right around the corner from that lot and could use that space if he works at night,
a win.
right?
Right.
Right.
And just a point of clarification, the new version that Kristen and myself and Ramsey have worked out is, as you all well know, office space is really just flying off the shelf these days as a commercial commodity. So we've got to really maintain a competitive eye. And so to the extent that the building in 2 or 3 years perhaps attracts an evening use, that's got to be, that we address that in the MOU where we come to Ramsey and talk about what we're going to need down the road. So
I did sit through a meeting this morning where we discussed how office space was sitting in our borough. So I don't want to give you the 5 more spaces. I'm slightly tempted to give you the 5 more spaces if you take that out of the lease that you're going to take evening hours. But I don't even know about that. I still don't want to give you the 5 spaces. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are 45, 7 to 7. That would be my suggestion.
My question, excuse me, my question to the parking director, have we done a study on the usage of the lot between 7 and 7 on a given period, whether there's vacant spots in that lot, be able for the residents to use it? Is all 45 spots always full? And then
I've surveyed, have it with me. I have been having officers survey it throughout the day, so morning, afternoon, and evening. I don't have it at this point. The problem is similar to Lot 5 because of the lack of clear signage and the lack of understanding of the usage, because even the officers aren't really sure how to enforce this lot because does McFadden have the lease until 5 p.m. or, we don't want to ticket anyone in any spaces, not knowing how it is supposed to be used. We don't have great data on it, but no, it's not full all of the time. It's not a low-use lot because of the lack of understanding of the enforcement and
to Ms. Dorsey's point and Ms. Vaccaro's spot, when we had the misunderstanding at Lot 5, I don't think we should proceed on their request until we understand what's going on in that lot, because you just mentioned we don't know who's there, who's ticketing, where they belong. There's a lot of open-ended questions that are still there. And
I think once we have it properly signed, we can get people into the right spaces, but because we can't, because we don't know, we have the F permit holders that are allowed to use spaces. And then if you have open lease spaces that are free at night, no one parks in the metered spaces, and we don't know who's allowed to be in the free spaces at what times. So it would help to sign them and say, well, if we have a kiosk there and the lease spaces are only available until 7 p.m., then the whole lot gets enforced after 7 p.m.
that's where the confusion is. We don't know what we're doing. So why would we approve something if we don't know what we're doing? And why don't we push it off a month or two till we understand what we're doing, get the proper signage in there?
I'm not sure
think the
that's what you
sign-
said. I think the confusion is around the signage, right? And even residents, right, are concerned about or confused around where and when they can park in that lot. I live close to that lot, so, and I rarely see it full, rarely. There are meters in that spot and there are some signage, but it's not clear.
Do you know how many meters are there? 18. There's 18, 45 spaces and 8 plus 18 metered spaces. And the reason my leased spaces aren't always full, COVID changed a lot of stuff. And now instead of one person parking there while they're in the office, they're platooning them on a daily basis. So our 45 spaces may actually serve to park 60 different vehicles during the, Monday to Friday, typically during the day. We've just ran it as a handshake that although we're entitled, our original lease says 24/7, practical, we're not using it. And it just never really got enforced. That's where I think you're coming up with. I would ask you to say, what's your utilization of your 18 spaces? Because if you're utilizing them and you're at a 30% utilization, you'd be better off flipping, I'm selling here now, flipping 5 my way and then back them off if it gets up higher or something.
I think that we financially, with the current signage, would be better off, but I want those spaces used. I want them utilized. I want signage up, flashing lights, come park here. It's so easy. That's what I want to see happen. So I want more parking for more people.
Park the meters because they can sneak into the leased spaces and we don't know if they're.
Because they know, yeah.
And they're free at night and even the F permits will sneak into the leased spaces. So it gets really confusing. So if we clean it up with signage and if everybody's on the same page with enforcement, then we know how to enforce and then you won't even have meters because you have a kiosk and the whole lot becomes one. If that makes sense. I mean,
And we go to license plate.
right. And then it goes to license plate.
So we go to license plate readers. We start making money every night because the restaurant people are parking in there, and we leave them with 45 spaces.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do on our, it's the third time I said it, on our own side, to get the thing signed properly, to find out what our usage is on the 18 meters. Mr. McFadden is asking for an extra 5 spots, which is guaranteed money for that period of time. And Ms. Dorsey just said that the lot is rarely full. So, I think your study is important for us to make a good decision.
I think if we continue waiting, I mean, I can get the information of the usage, but I think with the wayfinding and with putting a kiosk and cleaning up the signage, I think you can attract more people to use appropriately. And then every spot becomes metered after 7 PM, except for the 24/7 spaces. So then it's not that you would have 18 metered spaces. The whole lot would be like lot 5, where the entire lot would just be metered. So that's.
When can we think about doing the signage to clean it up?
Well, and then part of this lease is that if we do it and Mr. McFadden, lets us know how many are 24/7, we could get it ordered from motions.
Well, the other point, Mr. Flynn, was that Mr. McFadden had agreed to buy the signs. So if you're going to do signage outside of that, then we've got to rethink what we're doing with the MOU. You're going to.
I like the fact that Mr. McFadden's going to pay for the signs. Yeah,
It's give.
I'm telling you.
It never
There are
ends.
my signs up there now and I'm
Yeah.
replacing them.
Yeah. So,
There is the signage that we're doing, that the overall signage issue. That's just like a separate issue. The signage we're talking about tonight is specifically for your 45 spots.
Says, you know what it says currently?
No.
It just says lease spaces 1 through 45.
I've seen that, and I think it's very, like, what does that mean? It means I'm not allowed to touch it.
Spaces number 1 through 45. What it doesn't say is lease spaces 1 through 45, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., use kiosk after. That's where you're going.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and that, I think that's,
You anticipate.
yes, and I mean, I like the MOU. I'm pretty happy with that. If we're all on board with that, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy with the way that would go. And I don't see any, during the business hours, I don't see any reason why an additional 5 spots, because the lot's never totally full. So why don't we recoup the additional 5 spots during the business hours? And then after 7 o'clock, it goes to kiosks. It keeps it clean.
Like,
I don't know if I'm there. I like the 45. We just had a resident here who said he has no place to park because he works at night. So he would need to park there during the day. That's one, but we know parking is an issue here. I think we should keep it at 45. That's what's, in the minutes. I appreciate the concession of 7 to 7, but I also think we need to think about the residents.
Even if you leave it at 45, it'll have a kiosk, so it'll be easy with the app. So anyone that's using it as needed will have a higher level of.
The fellow, Chris, that came, he lived on New and Washington.
Yeah.
Okay, do you know what permit zone was in?
Street, so
He's what?
Look at the map I gave you. Got Paul Merrill. Doing your job for you, Ramsey.
Yes.
Kicking his ass so much.
I actually stopped to talk to him about this because I wanted to know who he was. So I saw him coming to his car and I said, "Oh my God, that's your car. I know who you are. My kids know who he is." He's your kid.
He's K. Oh, so F wouldn't matter to him. And to Miss Dorsey's point, he couldn't park in that lot anyway. So he had to find a
Why?
spot in K area.
Why couldn't he park in that lot?
But I
Yeah.
to hear Ms. Dorsey's point about that.
Yeah.
That's permanent people there, right? So.
Mhm.
I think. Sorry. Well,
Sorry.
I mean, it's nice.
I just think if you only have 56 spaces in a lot, 50 is a lot to give up. And I.
To pay for you.
Right, but I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
to get to
Allocate.
allocate
Yeah.
the one entity, whether I know you have several in that building, you have so few.
Ms. Rayner, I didn't realize there was only 56 parking spots there. So that's 11 more spots that the residents could actually park in. So I'll stick with the 45 with the group until we figure it out.
So we're going to approve the draft lease for Lot 7? Thank you.
Is there consensus?
Thank
There's
you.
consensus here about 45 spaces, I heard too, right? That's
45.
what I heard. Okay, thank you.
None.
None?
Heads up now.
Okay,
And if that changes annually, I'll follow that.
okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to motion to approve the March 2024 Parking Committee meeting minutes.
Approved.
Okay. And then other business.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, good evening. I have one other thing on business. Bill, can you put the picture up so everybody has a visual? On the corner of South Matlack, 125 and 127 South Matlack, the CARES Foundation has been there for 41 years. And just recently, the IUC left them because there was no parking for the teachers, and they went down the street to where the senior center is. And the problem was no one ever thought to get a business permits for them to park on the streets at Matlack and Barnard Street. The house, there's two houses there. They're entitled to business permits with certain regulations by the number of permits and by the hours that they're allowed to use the permits. And I spoke to the parking director about it. And we have quite a few places around the borough that has that kind of issue. And this is for other business, so we can discuss it in May.
Yeah, we're very aware of this property. I think we have a couple of properties in the borough that have been added to the permit area ordinance, which I think we would now put in the resolution area. I think it would be, we can add this to the May agenda. I think it's important that we would note that this would only be for this specific use, and any change in use would have to reapply. But, you know, we understand the importance of this property and the employees that need to park here. And I think that there's always an issue with their parking lot over there because the employees have to park there and then it backs up on the sidewalk area. So we're often called here, and I think police are there. So we support this. And then Mr. Flynn and I also discussed, you know, in the future, we should probably consider some sort of daytime business parking permit, but that would be another ordinance change that we don't need to go down right now. But I think it would be fine. And I think you said a 6 permit maximum.
Yeah, 6 permit maximum. Like, for example, on the corner of West Minor and New Street, the dentist, they have 20 parking passes for the people that work there. And you know, Mr. Ramsey and I talked about cleaning that up a little bit to see if we can come to a more reasonable number.
Yeah, I think we should just be mindful of these. Also, there might be a way to attach this to zoning decisions in the future. And
Yeah, I think that attaching it to zoning is
yeah,
good.
I'll put it on the May agenda though.
Thank you.
Oh, we have to.
I think then that we can be done. I can adjourn that meeting. Thank you.